Hello everyone, it's GigaBeef here, and today I'll be showing you why the AK101 is still one of the most powerful weapons in the mid-game and onwards this patch, and for the late game especially due to the changes in ammo crafting this wipe. Before we continue, today's video is sponsored by the Ridge wallet, and the Ridge team have kindly sent over some more styles, including this, the Hyperlime version, which is very vivid and has a slightly different feel to some of the others, which is a bit more grippy because it's got a powder-coated finish to it instead. The other one that they sent me is Eucalyptus, which I haven't actually seen in their range before, and this one has got a matching cash strap with the wallet itself, as well as a slightly different new Ridge logo, as well as having a metal edging and also interior. Actually, if you open it up and have a look inside, this one's actually completely shiny on the interior, which is pretty neat. As usual, all of the wallets hold up to about 12 cards really securely, and as I've shown, there's loads of different designs to choose from. This is my one that I've been using for well over a year now, and it's pretty much as good as new. I normally go for the money clip rather than the cash strap, but it's completely down to personal preference and exactly just which style you think suits you best. All of the Ridge wallets block unsolicited RFID reading, so people aren't going to be reading your cards when you don't want them to be, and the usual Ridge build quality is present here as well. They are so light, sleek, and fit into your pocket super easily, so they're so easy to carry. There are well over 30 colours and styles in the range, so you can just pick the one that fits with your own vibe. The key case securely holds 1 to 6 keys, and I streamlined mine down to just 2, which is an absolute huge improvement on my old bulky keyring, stopping them jingling about, poking holes in my pockets all of the time. The Ridge team are so confident that you'll be converted that they have a 99-day test drive period, after which you can get your money back if you don't love it, and a lifetime warranty if you do. What's more, you can get the best offer right now at ridge.com/gigaridge to save 10% on your order. So that's ridge.com/gigaridge to join the 80,000 strong 5-star rated proud owners of the Ridge wallet. So let's start with the basics. The AK101 can be found on Mechanic 3 for 43,000 rubles, although it can often be found on the flea market for cheaper than that, but sometimes it's a little bit thin, so you don't always want to rely on it. As part of the AK family, the AK101 mods out really cheaply, just like the rest of them, but 545 typically has a problem with suppressors, which really puts us off using some of the others like the AK74N and the other ones in that series. The AK101 though has a massive advantage in that it doesn't use those suppressors because it's chambered in 556. And so this allows you to get access to some of the cheapest modding in the game with the AK platform and some of the best suppressors in the game with the 556 muzzle attachments. In terms of its other statistics, it has 650 RPM, which is the same as the MDR and the SCAR, and can mod out really well, so can get lower than both of these weapons. So practically the recoil that you actually feel in game can be extremely low at a cheap price with the 101, which is why it's so good. As a sweetener, it also has a very high muzzle velocity, so it is decent for mid-range. Maybe not extreme long ranges because again, this is still 556 and not a full powered cartridge, but for short and mid ranges it performs really well with very flat muzzle trajectories on the bullets. So to start with, let's just have a look at how low this can get, and it is impressive the recoil level that you can actually achieve on this thing. If you use the Troy, the QARS rail, we'll put on our minimum vertical recoil foregrip, the RK2. In terms of the muzzles, you want to put the CNC Warrior, which is the one that unlocks all of the other 556 suppressors, and in here the lowest recoil is the ASR and the Seika, the slightly better version of the magazine, for one more ergonomics. A nice grip, again this doesn't affect recoil, but we'll put on the PT lock, and on top of this the PT3. The only other thing that we need to change is the Bastion, and this gets us to 41 ergonomics. I mean, we can actually increase this with the CSS, but yeah, 44 ergonomics and 32 vertical recoil, which is really low actually. For 650 RPM, this recoil number is extremely good and will feel almost minimal in game itself. If you were going to make a meta version of this, I suppose you probably would end up going with the G-Lock because you get slightly more ergonomics and you really don't trade in much in terms of recoil for it, and something like probably the SE5 I would imagine, and that would get you to 64 and 34, so you lose 2 in recoil and you gain a ton of ergonomics. Now I don't really see people using this that much. Like if you're going to make a completely ergo build, you normally end up just going for the M4 or something. So what we're going to do is we're going to reset this and we're going to show my favorite budget build for the 101 that I like to build itself, and it's a lot cheaper than that, and it comes relatively close actually in terms of recoil. So to start off with, on the muzzle we have the RRD4C. One of the issues with this build is that it is Mechanic 3 for the most part, but I will point out where those pinch points are and what you can kind of do about it. In terms of the handguard, I always talk about this one, the VDM CS gas tube. Once you've got to Mechanic 3, you can use that with the UFM Krebs key mod on top, which is really inexpensive normally, even though it is Peacekeeper 4. You normally find it on the flea market for much less than the trader price, and so you use that one because it only fits onto this gas tube, so people don't really know that it exists. Then for a vertical foregrip, really we could just pick anything with 2% recoil reduction. This one is very cheap, it's only 5 ergo, but the AK101 has quite high ergo anyway, and we're going loud for this build, so we can use the SS VFK because it is only 6,000 rubles. Then we're going to change over the pistol grip to the saw. You could use one of these ones, which is 1 more ergonomics, but it's a 3 extra 1,000 rubles, and at this ergo, we don't really need it. For the butt pad, we're going to add that onto the stock here, rather than using any of the fancy ones, because it just ends up not really being worth it, and I'll show you why in a second. And then the bastion on top. And this gets us to 69 ergonomics and 41 vertical recoil, which is extremely good for what you get. I know we're loud, we aren't suppressed, but if we go find parts here and we get rid of some of the stuff that we didn't have to buy, we then have to get all of these other things. And based on, this is the mechanic version, right? The only thing we're buying from the fleet is this custom UFM key mod. This is 93,000 rubles, clearly without an optic or any lights or anything. But for a base gun, this is extremely cheap. This is extremely cheap. Some guns cost this to start with. So from our 69 and 41, one of the things that you can do is swap over to the PT lock and the PT3. But you'll see how little difference it makes. 69, 41, we go to 73 and 40. So you basically gain 4 ergonomics and you lose 1 recoil, which is a benefit in this case. But it's at the expense of the lock itself, which is about 4,000 rubles, and the stock, which is 23,000 rubles. So it ends up being a swing of about 22k versus just going with the basic stock, because you get that when you buy the gun, and putting the butt pad on the back. It's very, very similar. So as I said here, the pinch points are the VDM CS gas tube, because even though this is mechanic 3, basically it's never on the fleet. I'm not even sure if this thing is in the loot pool, because I've never found one and I've never seen any on the flea market. Without that, you can't use the UFM Krebs. So an alternative is just to keep one of the original gas blocks on and then to use any of these. I like this style, any of these colors. And what I usually do is link search through the flea market. We go to handguards and we just pick whichever one is the cheapest at the time. And it's usually one of the tan ones or plum ones. So here you could get a plum one for 9,000 rubles. We'll find that plum one there, stick it on. And on top of that, for Peacekeeper 3, you can just choose any of these vertical foregrips because they fit on here straight away because it's M-lock. And there we go. We've got 70 ergo and 42 vertical recoil, which is very similar to the Krebs without really having to have mechanic 3. The other issue is the RRD4C. This thing is quite expensive on the flea market if you don't have mechanic 3. It can be a lot more than this actually. 20k you might decide is actually worthwhile. However, the alternative for this, if you want to go suppressed, as we pointed out earlier, is the CNC Warrior. Now you get 3 CNC Warriors for doing a quest, and so these things are normally not that expensive on the flea market actually. You can see they're only 3,000 rubles for mechanic, but 9k for the adapter is actually not too bad. So keep an eye out for them when they're cheap and maybe buy some. From there, you can then get access to any of these, so you could really buy anything that you like. A really cheap combination that works decently well is the SF3P plus the RC2, which is normally quite cheap, and that ends up with 54 ergo and 43 vertical recoil, which again is extremely respectable. And if we go find parts on this, the prices may have changed on some of them, but we can see what we need. We won't need the gas tube, because that will come with it. I think I've changed over to maybe the wrong one. It doesn't really matter for these purposes. And we bought this, we bought this, we bought this, and there you go. So it's 114,000 rubles for a suppressed build for 43 vertical recoil, which is extremely good in my opinion. The AK101 is just so amazing because of this combination of 5.56 muzzles and AK modding on the rest of the gun. Now, some people in the past have asked me about the AK102 and whether that is worth using because it is very, very similar. One thing to note about the 102 is that it is a slightly lower fire rate at 600 RPM rather than 650. And when I've tested it in the past, the difference in the vertical recoil and the practical recoil handling doesn't feel that different between the two weapons, and so I don't think it really justifies taking the lower time to kill of the 102. The only thing to say about it is that although it's more expensive on mechanic himself, normally people don't like the 102 and it's not really in favour because the 101 is so easily accessible, so you can actually go and get one for about 30k on the flea market, which is typically cheaper than what you can get the 101 for. Being shorter, it unfortunately doesn't support the Krebs handguard, but you can do the MOE AKM and use the relatively similar build to the one that we used before, and all things considered, it comes out to roughly the same price. At the moment we're talking about 80k, but that's because the 102 is very cheap on the flea market, so you can pick up something extremely cost effective here as well. And yes, remember that it is shorter and so it will be slightly better inside and not clip into door frames as much, but in CQB you probably want the faster time to kill that comes with the higher RPM, so it kind of is sort of counterproductive in getting that if you want to use it at close ranges because of that. So one of the biggest problems with the AK101 is the 30 round mag. It's pretty much its only downside. Now the RPM does make this a little bit better. It doesn't fire at 800 like the M4, it's only at 650, so it does mean that the magazines will last slightly longer. But there are many situations, especially as a solo player, where you might want a bigger magazine and you just can't get it, not even a 40 for this gun, which is a little bit of a shame. And so if you're going solo and you're expecting to be fighting against groups, then maybe this isn't the perfect gun for you. Outside of this though, in pretty much every other category category, the 101 is a very strong contender, and especially this wipe with 556 being brought back so early in the progression. M856A1 is now available on Peacekeeper 2, and M855A1 is available on Peacekeeper 3 after completing the Cult Part 1, which is a relatively early quest in the Peacekeeper line. Given that both of these can be bought from traders directly on every reset for dollars, means that if you want to use 556, you can usually get quite a lot of it. But what is truly excellent about the AK101 and is allowing it to scale into the mid to late game this wipe is M995. This ammo is perfect for beating class 5, and last wipe we really had 3 choices in the workbench that we could use, which was BP, M61 and M995. Those were the ones that I was crafting in workbench level 3. The issue now is that BP is level 45, M61 is locked behind Shooterborn, and that leaves M995 as really the only one that you can craft from level 30 easily without achieving high levels or achieving high level quests. Because 855A1 is such a good ammo in the first place, I typically stack M995 on top of 55A1, which allows it to go much further, and you can run many raids with 995 without running out. So next, let's have a look at a few clips on labs where I did exactly this with a very similar AK101 build as in this video. You can hear somebody over there. Oh. We could take this dude out, but they're fighting. But this guy's over here. Oh, maybe he's not. I don't know where he is. I could have sworn he'd be there. It sounded like he was like right here. I know, if we go this way. This is surely going to end well. A wide flank on labs. What could possibly go wrong? From here, I mean, one alternative is to go this way. Ah! How did he not see me there? I'm a lucky SOB. Got him, just about. I think he killed the other guy. I think. Is it always better to hit fire in PvP? Pretty much. He's an SVD boy. Looks kind of poor. He does. AVT man. So next up, if you're looking for something with a little bit higher fire rate for use in CQB, then go and check out my level 3 trader M4 builds over on this video here. Otherwise, as usual, a big shout out to all my patrons, and as always, have fun in your raids.